Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a real show of loyalty, and it's pretty awesome. You talk about Thanos. I mean, Trump is like some kind of otherworldly creature. They just can't. They just can't. They can't get him. And not only are they not going to be able to get him, but he didn't do anything wrong. And Mitch McConnell knows this. Mitch McConnell will move to acquit Trump, not merely dismiss charges, sources say. And an acquittal is basically stating, yeah, all of this was nonsense. He's not guilty of anything. We're not just going to dismiss the charges, kind of, alluding to the fact that we're just the Senate GOP, we control the Senate, and instead of really getting into it, he might be guilty, he might not. So we're just going to dismiss these the articles of impeachment. No. What they're saying and what they're doing is they're actually going to acquit President Trump. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is not expected to hold a vote on a motion to dismiss the impeachment articles against President Trump, but would instead move to a final vote acquitting the president when a majority of senators believe the trial has run its course. That's significant because Republicans want to have an actual vote on acquittal to clear the president of the charges against him and not simply rely on a 51-vote threshold procedural motion to dismiss the hotly disputed case. The Constitution mandates 67 votes are required to convict the president and remove him from office, a barrier widely considered too high to be reached in this case. Of course, he didn't do anything wrong. President Zelensky stated there was no quid pro quo, no leverage. No one was twisting anyone's arm. The notion that he would be afraid of Biden is hilarious, like truly hilarious. Biden is like bragging about, or not bragging, but like he's like, well, he bragged about quid pro quo himself, but he basically came out and said, yeah, I'll be a one-term president. I'm only going one term. Like, why would you even run? That is basically introducing Clinton 2020, which I've called since 2017. But the notion that he's afraid of Biden, so he's fabricating an investigation, is nonsense. He's not afraid of Biden. He would easily defeat Biden, number one. Number two, one very plausible scenario is that they were going to get the money anyway. And he simply said, hey, you know what? Look into this because there's evidence of wrongdoing by Democrats and by Biden. There's definitely a conflict of interest with Biden. Definitely, there's not, without a doubt, because, he did force another country to fire a prosecutor that was looking into his son, the arrangement where his son is on the board of directors getting tens of thousands, $50,000 a month by one estimate. And Hunter Biden just lost a court case that is now where his finances and tax returns are now going to be disclosed. That's just my Hunter Biden. But the big issue is you can't say that Trump withheld the money just for a couple of months when you know that the country, the whole point, the whole defense of Biden is that, there's a lot of corruption in the Ukraine. And the Shokin, the investigator, wasn't looking at all the corruption. Well, if that's the case, then Trump had every reason to look at where the money was going to go or how the money was going to be given, whatever. The issue, if it were a Democrat and Republicans were accusing the Democrat in the Oval Office of doing the exact same thing, they would have no evidence. It would simply be the word of diplomats, which it is now. They can't prove anything. There's no proof. There's no evidence. There's no emails. There are no directives or orders by President Trump that anyone can say, here's what Trump said. He demanded this. It's in writing. Nobody has any firsthand knowledge that he said, I want them to investigate, and if they don't investigate Biden, they will not get the money. Nobody has that. In addition to the fact that Marie Yovanovitch, the ambassador that was confirmed during President Obama's administration, during his own administration, states that she was given talking points regarding Hunter Biden. There's a great song in the 90s, and they should just rename it, That's Just My Hunter Biden. But, I mean, you look at what's taking place, and Mitch McConnell should absolutely acquit President Trump, not just dismiss. The Senate GOP should definitely do this. This is absolutely fantastic. And this would actually, in a way, completely, you're talking about a debacle, a political embarrassment of epic proportions. They made such a big deal about impeachment and that he committed this big crime. And if the Senate GOP actually acquits President Trump, not just dismisses the charges, then it's not just Democrats versus Trump anymore. It's Democrats versus Trump and the entire Republican Party. Up until this point, you really have had people try, what's wrong with the Republicans? Aren't there any, more John Kasich's out there? He's so great. Up until this point, it's like, but now you'll have a united Republican Party, really united under behind President Trump. I mean, it's really going to be interesting. I mean, it's actually kind of hilarious too that you have Democrats losing at their failures at being inept, or their failures at corruption. Their failures at being corrupt. They're inept, I should say, at being corrupt. So, McConnell hinted this strategy when he spoke to reporters Tuesday. It could go down the path of calling witnesses and basically having another trial, or it could decide, and again, 51 members could make the decision that they've heard enough and believe they know what would happen and could move to vote on 2 articles of impeachment. Those are the options, not decisions. No decision. Okay, so it could be down the path of calling witnesses and basically having another trial. So McConnell hinted this strategy when he spoke to reporters, and said the Senate would have 2 choices after hearing opening arguments from the House impeachment managers and the president's defense counsel. It could go down the path of calling witnesses and basically having another trial. Or they could simply dismiss. So the 51 vote is to dismiss. The trial would be to acquit. Trump wants a trial. He stated that numerous times. And he should get a trial. Even Kasich, when he was talking to Don Lemon at CNN, even Kasich stated that, there were things going on between Biden and the Ukraine. So even Kasich is like, yeah, it's obvious. This is obvious. But let's see here. This is really interesting. So Mitch McConnell will move to acquit Trump, not merely dismiss. U.S. Senator leader races. So McConnell says Senate would acquit Trump if trial were held today. That's November 5th. And then 2 hours ago on CNN, Mitch McConnell will move to acquit Trump. Nothing happened in terms of evidence that they had from November 5th until now. You look at the impeachment proceedings, they were nonsense. You had academics who can't stand Trump. That's it. You had witnesses that Fiona Hill actually bolstered the case that the Ukraine did interfere in the election look, we know with certainty that Democrats reached out to the Ukraine to get dirt on Manafort. We don't know with certainty, because that's not from the United States intelligence agencies. That's actual records that Politico has. Like, it was serious reporting that actually was serious journalism where they found out. It wasn't just Kenneth Vogel. It was John Solomon. Now they're trying to silence John Solomon, but he is very, very honorable, great journalist. But Kenneth Vogel, the New York Times. The New York Times, no one has gone after him yet. And I hope they never do, because he's a great journalist, Kenneth Vogel. He's a fantastic journalist. But there's already evidence that you had DNC officials or people working with the DNC going and meeting with Ukrainian officials to find out information on Manafort. That's already in Politico and in The Hill. What you don't get with certainty is that the Russians hacked the DNC. They indicted 12 Russian intelligence officials based on CrowdStrike. That's not certain. There's nothing certain. They're confident, and they've confirmed their confidence. The ODNI and DHS reports come with warranty disclaimers. So, this is just really interesting. McConnell wants to acquit Trump. This was a couple minutes ago. News 5. Cleveland. McConnell will move to acquit Trump if impeached, not simply dismiss charges. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is expected to hold a final vote to acquit President Trump, should he be impeached, when a majority of senators believe his trial has run its course, instead of holding a vote to dismiss the articles of impeachment. This is going to completely obliterate Biden's campaign, which was already done. So you get Hunter Biden's financials and tax returns, because they're going to be out in the open in public. He lost a paternity case. He should be happy. You know, he has a new child in the world. He should be happy about it, but he's not. Well, you know, so you have Hunter Biden. You have the money that, and by the way, in the court case just the other day, the lady wants to know how much she made from Burisma. That should be fun. You get the issue regarding Marie Yovanovitch, who stated that President Obama's administration gave her talking points. I mean, you have all of this. Then you have, of course, the video, Council on Foreign Relations video, where he's bragging about an actual quid pro quo. Well, they're saying it's part of U.S. foreign policy. The president decides foreign policy, not the vice president. So, is that President Obama's foreign policy? And it's interesting, the timing, because the prosecutor in the Ukraine was actually going after that company, and then he gets fired. So, we can go on and on. The issue is there's no evidence. Every single person was a diplomat. The intelligence operative that complained about Trump didn't have firsthand knowledge, and he was tied to Biden. He had worked for a point with Biden. So, I mean, it's very bizarre. The whole thing is extremely, extremely bizarre. And I find it interesting that Democrats, I mean, this is so Clinton 2020. I find it interesting that Democrats don't realize that the longer this goes, the better Trump looks and the worse Biden looks. But again, that's almost... Clinton is going to make out big time with all of this. Obviously, she's running, and I called this in 2017. But it's just so brilliant in terms of the insidious nature of all of this. The impeachment started off as hurting Trump in their minds, actually independents, by like a 10-point margin, don't care. And they don't even want the impeachment. But you have a very, very interesting dynamic here, where the longer this goes in the Senate, the worse it is for Biden, the better it is for Clinton, and the better it is for Trump, and then we get the rematch, and then Trump defeats Clinton again. And there you go. Thanos is victorious. Again, people are like, but she's the bad guy, and he does a lot of really sinister and horrible and heinous things. Like, you're taking it literally. That's the problem. Democrats, like, they take anything that doesn't suit their paradigm of thought, where they can cheat Bernie Sanders and then say it's not a big deal, but then they make a big deal out of everything else. You're taking it too literally. If you're okay, Trump is not saying that he's literally Thanos. The hilarious thing is that he's pointing out the duplicity and the theatrical performance regarding impeachment, where Pelosi's like, oh, I didn't want to do this. Of course she did. Of course Pelosi wanted to impeach Trump for the moment he won. The moment he won, they wanted to impeach Trump. So it's like a bunch of nonsense. Give me your thoughts below. Check out A. Trey Goodman's other channel right this second. Thank you, everybody.